huge issue in the foster home and child protective field. There's still a significant mistreatment of Indigenous kids in Canada. I wish this field didn't have to exist, but there's just so many people who needed help. There's so many people being abused. There's so many people that the system fails every day. We've been exposed to so much misjustice that it's hard not to do something about it.
Welcome to An Entrepreneur's Vibes, the podcast that gives insight into the minds of visionary entrepreneurs and business leaders. Brought to you by The Right Direction, a leading professional and technical writing company based in North America. Each episode, we explore the stories and experiences of those who dared to dream, took the leap, and built their own empires. Join us in uncovering the secrets to success and lessons learned along the way. So if you're just starting out your entrepreneurial journey, or you're already a seasoned business pro, you'll find inspiration, knowledge, and good vibes right here. Today, we're thrilled to introduce our guest, who is an inspiring leader and trailblazer in the fields of behavioral analysis, mental health, and youth support. He is the founder of Brown's Behavioral Consulting and Indigenous Youth Services, two transformative organizations dedicated to providing compassionate, culturally inclusive care for young people and families facing behavioral challenges. Beyond his consulting and direct intervention work, he is also a passionate advocate for mental health reform and a prolific author. Today, we'll dive deep into his journey and dedication to making real-world change in mental health care and the lessons he's learned along the way. Welcome to the show, Christian Brown.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, how are you doing today, Christian?
I'm doing great.
Amazing. Well, could you tell us, please, for everyone who's joining us today on this episode, could you share with us your journey in psychology and behavioral analysis, how that began, and what inspired you to specialize in mental health and intervention strategies?
This was never the plan at all. So I was in the university. Plan was to go to medical school, and while I was in university, needed a part-time job. So I got a job at one of the group homes in the area. And then as soon as I got there, it pulled me in pretty aggressively. Witnessed a lot of the living conditions, and bad treatment, and just abuse going on in the system. So that part-time job just really quickly started becoming 120 hours a week, and then just shifted into the psychology realm after that, and everything has kind of been just a storm. None of this was planned at all. I fell into it and got sucked in. And once I got there, I started working a lot, learning a lot. And then within the first year and a half or so being in the industry, Child Services actually reached out to me, asked if I could start my own company. And that's what I did. And then it's just been nonstop ever since.
So I guess this industry just kind of fell on your lap, and I guess you could say you just kind of fell in love and grew the passion from all the experience you've built through the years.
Yeah, it's more of just a drive, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Motivated to help these kids out, fix the system. I mean, not a lot of people know, but it is right now. It is a disgusting world out there, especially for these kids. It's just not something I can say no to ever. So whenever I get a phone call or whatever asking for a referral, it's always how can we modify the schedule to fix everyone's problems really quickly. It definitely been an incredible journey, though. happy it's taking this path.
It's very inspiring indeed. And I wanted to ask you, was there something specific that drew you to focus on youth and family behavioral challenges in particular?
Being exposed to all the hardships that you could do and all the kids that are suffering and the system that's broken, it really makes you stay up at night thinking how you can help them. When you get this 7-8-year-old abused kid and pulled out of trafficking situations or drug houses, and then they got just the most traumatic backstories that stick with you. So once you get exposed to that, you either become incredibly jaded or you become incredibly motivated. So I'm trying to just stick with the motivated side and really try and make an impact.
Mm-hmm. And for people out there who don't know about the industry too much, what's one thing that people might not know about behavioral analysis or mental health care that you think everyone should understand?
I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of confusion, a lot of stigma. So when people witness a behavior, or even aggression, or self-harm, or just aggressive outbursts, it's easy to label them as crazy, or as fundamentally something's wrong with them as a person. But I think it's really important to understand that behaviors are not something that we should be looking at and judging the person for. So you got to separate the behaviors from the person. Behaviors arise from a variety of different contributing factors, but essentially it's nothing that individual is to blame for. Behaviors are no different than any biological illness, right? If you had a tumor in your frontal lobe and it caused you to have bad impulse control, that tumor in the frontal lobe, when people heard about that, they go, oh, that's why they did that. So we don't, you put them in a hospital, they get the tumor removed, and then no one holds what they did against them. But the exact same neurological functions that cause the impeded impulse control in that person can exist in other people that don't have a tumor. They just have an altered development of that portion of the brain. So biologically, those two regions could be identical, tumor or not tumor. And for some reason, society tends to heavily stigmatize the person that you can't just label, ooh, the tumor caused this. It was because of 20 years of abuse that led up to negative behaviors produced by impeded in frontal lobe. I think the main thing, I guess, if you ramble a lot, sorry, but the main thing to take away is that behaviors are separate from the person. The behaviors can be changed. The behaviors can be modified, improved, and you can't, especially in this field, you can't hold what people do against them. Your goal, like our job now, is to correct what can be corrected, not stigmatize what they've done.
I think it takes a lot of patience also for the work that you continue to do, because you're right, there is so much stigma around mental health, and it's not deemed as important as any other physical ailment that you might have. And people need that help, and people need organizations that will help them, like you said, correct those behaviors, because we really need to establish these sort of industries and organizations that will help people be better members of society. And just because it's easy to label and judge people based off their behaviors, or their mental health. And I think it's really important what you do. And I wanted to ask you, how would you describe the mission of your work in a few words for someone who's unfamiliar with what you're currently doing?
It's tough to say. You've got a lot of side quests going on as well. But I think the main goal that we're striving for is just to improve the system and destigmatize mental health. I think that's the gist of it. Is we want to, we found a method that works really, really successfully. The model that we're using is amazing. Not to brag too much about it, but it just the results, we've been able to take the highest risk clients, kids in the country, and transform them to just being happy again and wanting to live life again, and in a matter of months, weeks. Sometimes change is incredibly possible, and I tell all the staff that our job is actually incredibly easy. This is a really easy job. Once you know what you're doing, is the easiest thing in the world. I don't even consider working with clients and working with kids as the job anymore. All the administrative stuff, terrible, hate it. Doing all the meetings, all the countless mountains of paperwork, that's really boring. Working with people, that is amazing. And if you know what you're doing, it is. And you know what you're looking for, and you know how to not take things personally. Because in this field, it gets ugly quickly. It gets really ugly really quickly. There's a lot of death threats and high stress situations, and it can be really hard if you're not able to remove those behaviors from the person to continue working with them. If you have a client who tried to stab you on Monday, going into work on Tuesdays, a lot more of a challenge for some people. If you're not able to understand that is a symptom that you're treating. So when you have somebody who has the maladaptive behaviors, who acts aggressive in response to certain situations, to frame it in a way where I like to equate it to a cardiologist, right? If you were a cardiologist, you wouldn't hold the fact that your patient is having a heart attack against them. You wouldn't go, I'm not going to work with that guy because his heart's not working very well. Well, we're in the behavioral industry, so if you point at a behavior and you say you're not going to work with this person because of this, then you're just saying, you won't work with them because they have something that they came to you to help with. So it's really about keeping that perspective of you're there to help. You can't hold it against them. You can't judge, and it's your job to fix it. So if they try to stab you, if they call you racist names, if they, try and light the house on fire. That the point of that you being there is to protect themselves in society and correct those behaviors. So you gotta intervene, and it's if they didn't have those behaviors, they wouldn't be even seen yet. So what do you obviously have to go to work on Tuesday.
It's a tough job, and you said it's very high stress situations. I wanted to ask you, like, how do you handle that? How do you not take it personally? What are the things that you do to level yourself out so you can still go to work in the morning and not be as stressed because you're dealing with a lot of stressed out people? How do you level yourself out when you're continuing this job?
That is definitely, I think, like the burnout rate in this field is incredibly high. But I think that's the thing most people struggle with, and it is just about cognitive reframing. Like we again, you got to separate it. So like I remember if that person tried to stab you on Monday, you got to remember that outside of that incident, outside of that behavior, that person has the potential to become happy and healthy. And there's a reason why they have that. So the reason why someone might come out and be aggressive towards you is because they've been abused in the past, and they've had these defense mechanisms that are just hyperactive. And society, with a lot of people, is not worth being a part of in their eyes. So if you were taken away from your home at 3 years old and moved into 25, 30 different group homes and foster homes over the course of 15 years, like it's understandable not to have ingrained connections in society. If you've been moved that many times, if you've seen that many faces, you've seen 500, 1,000 staff come through over the years, and you know that you don't have that consistency. It's really about breaking down, understanding why, and if you can separate that and you can avoid like now I don't take anything personally if anyone does at all. It's like everything there could be there's an explanation for it. There's an explanation for every behavior. So the goal is, especially with new people in the industry, is to always have that perspective. So when someone does something negative to you, even outside of work, in everyday life, someone cuts you off in traffic or whatever, a lot of first instincts is that emotion, the primal emotion of like getting angry, yelling, road rage. But like that incident itself does not define the person, and that you should be able to understand that that action was bad. It could have been an accident, could have been on purpose, whatever the foundational cause is. It's still not how you should value that individual. So you can say that action was terrible, that action was bad, and that's not to say like you say that action's bad. They're still a great guy, but you say that action's bad, and you say how can we prevent it from happening in the future, or isolate it and just destigmatize it for everybody. Every negative behavior, from the extremes to the minor, is all a byproduct of things outside of all of our control. Like we didn't get to choose who raised us as a child, what we were exposed to, what traumatic events we had, how our brain was wired, how much dopamine versus serotonin versus whatever we get. Like it's not none of that's in our control. So just remembering that it is always possible to find the good qualities of the person, or the potential for good qualities at least. So that's how you stay in this field for long and don't burn out. Is that you have that cognitive reframing of these actions, these emotions, these words even are not truly what that person is fundamentally.
It takes a lot of empathy to do what you do, and it takes a lot of strength as well to separate yourself from a situation. And like you said earlier, you can't really control the circumstances, but if coming from someone like you can easily separate that. And you can't control what anyone else does to you, but you can control how you act, and you can control how you react to certain things. And I think it takes a lot of strength, and I think that's why you've been able to be successful in your field, which leads me to the question of the creation and the mission behind Indigenous Youth Services. Could you tell us, please, what was the motivation behind founding Indigenous Youth Services, and how did the organization come to fruition?
So I am impersonation myself, and a huge issue in the foster home and the child protective fields is there's still a significant mistreatment of Indigenous kids in Canada. I could rant for 2 weeks about this, but this is the most corrupt industry I've ever seen in my life, and that's not an understatement at all. This industry is disgusting. So there's group homeowners that exploit natives, they get more money for them. So the government has found it like pots set up and like for natives. Sometimes these agencies charge 2, 3, 4 times as much to have a native kid in the bed than someone of a different lineage. And when you have that financial motivation, it is very similar to the prison industrial complex of the States. When the for-profit prisons happen, prison sentences get longer, the quality of treatment gets worse. So when you have this world that no one wants to look into, and like it's it is a depressing world. So I don't hold it against everybody in the public, but it's a world that is full of abuse and misjustice, and it's easy for everybody to not look at the books in this field. So when you have that, it creates this model of how badly can we treat the kids and how much money can we get for them. So these group homes, even the first one I worked at, which is why how I got exposed to all this mistreatment. Some of them have 12 kids in the house. They have 12 kids. They lock them up during the day, especially during COVID. They would be locked in their rooms for weeks at a time, not being able to leave. They get physically restrained, physically abused, and you would take a kid, some of these kids are like 7 years old, and their parents were abusive, or their parents died, or their parents, for some reason outside of that 7-year-old control, they can't live at home anymore. So they take them from their Indigenous communities across Canada and bring them to places they've never been to. So these kids have never seen streetlights before, and they bring them into this whole new world. They get treated they get told that they have to stay in the room 13, 14 hours a day. Some treatment facilities don't let them have contact with anybody outside the group home for 6 months, and they get completely isolated. The staffing ratios are insanely terrible. So you get 12 kids, maybe 2 or 3 staff, and the kids range from that 7-year-old who's just a victim of a victim of abuse, might be next to a 17-year-old that sexually assaulted a handful of people, or armed robbery, or and then they get exposed to all these negative behaviors, and it becomes a funnel of the tragic story of the vast majority of cases is that they get pulled away from their home at a young age. They fall into the system. They go to 20, 30 houses, and then they age out. They turn 18. They have no life skills because they haven't been allowed to interact with the outside world. The only exposure they have is negative, and then they end up homeless or in jail. I mean, a long-winded way of answering, I guess, is just that there's a crisis happening in the Indigenous communities. Like residential schools might have ended in '96, but the practices are still there. They still take Indigenous kids. I've sat in meetings with CAS where they didn't know why they ever rented the kid. There's so many situations where these kids get pulled away from their communities, put into these homes, and every time it comes close to redoing that kid's contract with the agency, now all of a sudden they got all these behaviors that are causing too much trouble, and it's too risky to send them back home. So that 3-month placement turns into 6, turns into 12, turns into a lifetime. We need to shine some light on the issues. I mean, one of the places I used to work at, this is a huge reason why I had to start my own company, is there was an Indigenous kid who was being sexually assaulted by a staff at the group home, and the group home found out about it, and they kept the staff on for 6 weeks. They just moved him to a different house. They ended up getting arrested. No significant things happened out of it, but it was months long of abuse of this kid. It's hard to not get caught up in it. It's hard to explain, because when someone asks like why we do things, the surface answer just kind of, the wall falls down and the flood comes in. So I started this company because it needed to happen. I would much rather not need to have this company. I would much rather not have to be in this field at all. I wish this field didn't have to exist, but somebody had to do it. There's just so many people who needed help. There's so many people being abused. There's so many people that the system fails every day. We've been exposed to so much misjustice that it's hard not to do something about it.
Definitely understandable. And I wanted to ask you specifically about the model. You developed the A.I.M model. What was it like turning that idea into an award-winning program?
That model, it kind of evolved with my time in the industry. So there didn't seem to be anything that was good at explaining why people did things. And the system that you're using isn't working. My mindset is always like, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? And over the course of years in the industry, this is kind of the simplified version of how it could be widely explained and utilized. I'll break down the model a little bit for you. The A.I.M model stands for action, intention, and motivation. So every action, every behavior can be compartmentalized into those three basic categories, right? So there is the action itself. Like maybe you walk into a room and a lamp flies across your face and it gets shattered into pieces at the wall behind you. That's the action itself. And a lot of people's first reaction would be like to look where it came from and start assuming that that person tried to kill you, or that they were trying to hurt you, or there was all this plot to get rid of you. So the action part is really essential in isolating the event without any emotions attached to it, without any assumptions. So you isolate what that action is, and then you move into the intention behind that action. So you see somebody standing across the room who look like they threw a lamp. You go over there and you have a therapeutic conversation with them. You talk about why they did it. So like, what were you trying to do? Like, what was the outcome, the desired outcome of that lamp throw? It might be that he didn't even see you there and he just threw a lamp because he was mad he lost at his video game. It might be he was walking with a lamp and tripped and fell, and you just happened that way. Or it might be that he threw a lamp at you because he wanted you to be intimidated or injured. Whatever it is, your job is to sit there and understand what that desired outcome of that action was, and then you get into the meat of it after that. Once you establish what that desired outcome was, what the intention of it was, you can move into why do you have that intention? Like, what was the foundational cause for that intention to happen? So if you say that, if the kid says, I wanted to intimidate you, I wanted to hurt you, whatever it is, you go, why? Like, why did you want to intimidate me? What is the foundational cause that grew that intention? Like, and once you identify the action and then the intention and then the foundational cause, you can actually get to the root of the issue. You get to the root of the issue. Maybe he's afraid that you are going to leave him like all the other staff left him, or he's afraid that he's going to get abused. Whatever it is, but you need to identify each component before you can actually intervene appropriately. And the models that were being used before just weren't getting deep enough. So most interventions, even in treatment facilities or even in day-to-day life, focus solely on the action and then that person's interpretation of the action. The beauty of this compartmentalization is it can be utilized with people across the spectrum of knowledge, right? So if you don't know that much about psychology, you don't know that much about neuroscience, you don't know that much about behavior interventions, you could still use this model and you could still use it to the action phase. You get to separate your emotions. You get to go, let's think about this really quickly, like what exactly did happen. And then once you can do that, you're in a great space already. The model allows people to take a time to properly process information before acting. So if you live your life like thinking, you're at work one day, office job, someone comes over to your cubicle and starts yelling at you because you parked in this parking space or whatever it is. You could use this model still. You could use the model of the action, the yelling, and then the intention was it to get you to stop parking in the parking space, and then why is that parking space so important to that one person? Like what happened in their life where they felt like that parking space meant so much to them that they needed to become verbally aggressive towards another person to defend it. So if you can compartmentalize all that, now when you're on the receiving end of all this aggression, right, when you compartmentalize it that way, your action, your back to them is not going to be emotion driven, yelling back or plotting a revenge or hating that person. It's going to be an exercise in analyzing the situation and coming up with a productive outcome. How can you assess why this is happening and what steps need to be taken to prevent it from happening again? And I think that's why the model's taken off so much. It's applicable across life circumstances, and you don't need to have a PhD to utilize it. You could use it in just everyday life. Definitely if you're working with complex behaviors, it helps to know a lot more about why those behaviors are formed. But the reality of the situation is 90% of the problems are solved when you just understand why they happen. When you understand like path of events that happened that led up to where you are, you can isolate variables and you can make better decisions in the future.
It's definitely looking at the situation from looking at it at the bigger picture, not just like looking at it so deep. You're looking at all the variables in place. And I think it's an amazing program. And I wanted to ask you, since we were talking a lot about like the stressful parts of your job, could you share with us some of the success stories or maybe a memorable moment that showcased the impact of your team's work on an individual or a family?
We've taken the most high-risk kids, and I guess in particular, I'm just trying to word it in a way where it doesn't give out too much personal information on these clients. But I got called to consult on a youth that was staying in a psychiatric unit of a hospital, and he was only 9 years old. He had nonverbal autism. He was being heavily mistreated, and all the behaviors that arose from that were demonized and used against him. But he essentially wasn't able to communicate very effectively. He has these, he's 7. He's starting to understand the world a bit more. Has complex wants, needs. He might want a particular book or some food. What happened was there was a lot of his home kind of broke down. Cops were there every day, so they put him in the psychiatric unit. Which the most disheartening part of that situation was that they didn't cater to his needs at all. He was put on an upper level floor behind security doors, and when I got there, it would have been 8 months into his stay. For that entire 8 months, he never got to leave the room. It became increasingly aggressive over time being there. They had a bathroom in his hospital room. The staff locked it because he kept going into the bathroom and playing with the sink. So he ended up, it was a hard scene. He would end up defecating on the floor. He would urinate his pants, and it got really, really bad. So I went there when I walked into the unit. He had 3 adults, all supposed to be in this industry, and they were treating him just like he was hand electric. Like it would be two staff at the door and another one at the hallway exit. You could see that when they would look at him, they would be intimidated, afraid, and they wouldn't be engaging with him socially at all. They'd just be literally like it was hand electric in that room. So he wasn't allowed to leave the room. He wasn't allowed to do anything really. The room was empty. There was just a bed on the floor and locked bathroom, nothing on the walls. And this kid was in there for 8 months. So I got there and they were complaining because they kept assaulting staff. He would walk by, start punching, kicking, hitting them, and the aggression just continued to escalate. But I think what happens in this field is that you become so institutionalized yourself. Like your goal turns from helping that kid to getting through the day, and the getting through the day is easiest when you lock him in a room. So they locked him in a room essentially for 8 months, and we're wondering why his behaviors became more and more, high risk, more aggressive. So I went there and just immediately, because he's a child, sat next to him, started talking with him, started playing with him, and you could just see that immediately he realized that I was there to help him, and his behaviors stopped, and he just became a great kid to hang out with. So we transitioned him from that environment home back to his house and back into school, and that was the biggest success. It just because if we didn't intervene, he would still be in that hospital, and the mistreatment it's just insane. I mean, I know I don't bash on agencies all the time, but there was no need for that. You're creating larger issues. Just seeing a kid from that complete helpless zone, like he was completely being heavily abused, helpless, and deemed by everybody else to be this highest risk kid in the world and so aggressive, and no one wanted to be close to him, to really, or like almost immediately becoming just a great kid, happy, I worked with him every day for months, and it just being able to transition him back to his house was amazing, back to his family, and That's the big goal here. Is like I started in this industry when I branched off from with my own company. We didn't even do placements. We just did home support interventions. The goal is always to keep kids with their families, and we didn't even start getting houses until there was kids that just didn't have families to go to. The success stories are amazing. It's great. I mean, every day I get messages, emails from families and kids just saying how their life turned out better and they were thankful and everything. So there is a lot of happy stories when you do the job right, which is great because when I first started in this industry there was no success stories. There would be always the kid would end up dead or in jail, homeless. And it just gets so hard to go to work after that. It's so hard to live with yourself after that. So it's like this industry is something that it either it takes you over completely or it makes you the worst person you can be.
It's great that you've stayed passionate and now you can share these like amazing success stories. I think it's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It goes to show that it only takes, attention and a great level of care to, help these kids to not end up on the streets and not end up, as bad members of society. I think it's great that you're able to do that, and I'm so happy. And I hope you continue to hear a lot more of these success stories. And if you don't mind, I wanted to ask you some entrepreneurial advice because you run a lot of initiatives, your consulting practice, and the work that you do at Indigenous Youth Services, and you're also an author. How do you balance your time and energy? Because it takes a lot of energy to do what you do. So how do
Yeah,
you
I
do
think
it all?
well, honestly, I got a really supportive wife. She's really taken on board a lot too. Honestly, I don't really have the best life to model her. I think I spend a lot of time working, a lot of sleepless nights. But yeah, I think the way I juggle it is that just basically jumping between tasks. So if I'm working on like the consulting company and it starts to get like sort of feeling burned out, like I would switch to a different task with IYS or something. With writing, uh, I write multiple books at a time, and I just kind of jump between all of the books, so that way it doesn't feel like I'm sitting there for 18 hours straight doing one thing. It's not like I know a lot of like entrepreneurs like to go and go like I wake up at 4 in the morning and grind, and it's like a great life and whatnot, but it's not a great life. Life sucks. But the goal is to make a better life, right? Like that's the difference, and that's why I think a lot of people fail is because they get into wanting to start their own business and they realize, oh man, this is 120 hours a week of working and I got nothing for it because with regular jobs you work 120 hours a week, you get a huge paycheck in 2 weeks. With your own company, you might where I probably wasted 500,000 hours doing things that didn't pay me a dime. Like you end up wasting a lot of resources pursuing things because you don't know if it's going to work out until after you start trying to do it. So balancing everything is the hardest part. But if you have a passion for what you're doing, it doesn't feel so much like work. Like I'm excited to do this. I think it's great. Sometimes I do work 18 hours a day, 24 hours straight, and it's still hard to go to bed because you really haven't got enough done. But if you're going to start a company or you're going to try and create some change, I think you have to prep yourself for not only just like weeks, but like years of just like endless work, like putting in all the hours. It is something that consumes you entirely. So
I think that's like really realistic advice that you're giving because a lot of people they think, oh, it's so easy to just like start a business. But like you said, it's like it's different from when you're working like 40-hour weeks if you're just an employee and you get something out of that immediately. When you're starting something from scratch, you don't necessarily see the payoff until much later, and you're like on call 24/7. So it is
all the
it's
time, yeah.
yeah, it's very stressful. Well, would you have any advice for entrepreneurs who want to create a mission-driven business like yourself?
Oh man, it's tough on a personal level. I would tell them don't do it. It is really bad. It's a really bad time. It takes everything, like everything from your life, especially in the field like mine. It just as a person, like I don't want my kids doing this. I would much rather my kids live a happy life that's, they don't have to worry about the troubles of the world. But as a member of the community, as a member of the world, the species, I think we need a million more people to go into this field and go into community-based improvement agencies. And just, you got to be ready to lose a bunch. Like, yeah, I really have the 2 companies, but realistically, they were 200 companies, right? Like they fail all the time. They fail constantly, and they fail because they fail because they have to. If you go into this industry with the mission of actually creating change and helping people, you're going to go bankrupt a million times. You're going to lose everything. You're going to have nothing. I've gone when I first started, I would go, live at work with the clients, and sometimes I wouldn't. Like, I would have to put groceries back for myself because I didn't have any money. And that happened for years because the industries are impossible to work in. The agencies don't pay you at all, and sometimes they don't pay you. I've not gotten paid for months at a time, and the kids don't get the funding that they need. So like I've had lots of kids who lived in our support homes that weren't getting any money. They weren't getting funded at all. So I would get a call from a social worker, and they would say, like, this kid's being abused, or this kid's they're afraid that they're going to commit suicide, and they need to get out of where they are, but they have no money, and I can't say no, right? You can't be like, nah, I should go somewhere else. We always take them in, and it's just the company could be doing great. We could have lots of money in the bank, and then we get somebody who doesn't have any money, but they need help, and all the money goes to that. So yeah, like bank accounts dips to empty every couple of months, basically. But it has to happen that way. Like you can't. The day I say, like, I'm not going to help somebody because they don't have money is the day I got to leave. Like, I can't be in the field anymore because the industry is full of people who do that. Like I've sat in meetings with directors of CAS from different areas, and they would tell me that in front of 20 people, they would say that they are not going to investigate this child abuse allegation and these claims because they have nowhere to put the kid if they find anything positive, if they find anything like actual abuse. They have nowhere to put them, or they don't want to live in the CAS building with the kids, so they tell them no. This field's full of that. My wife and I found 4 homeless missing kids, and they were living in a tent in the forest, and they told us to put them back in the tent. And obviously that's not something we could do. So we didn't do that, and my wife and I ended up just taking them in, and we couldn't pay for staff either, so we just lived there for 6 months with them. But you have to make that sacrifice, but essentially, this industry in particular is not one you should get into to make money. This industry is one that you will lose money, and you will lose a lot, and you're gonna get beat up a lot. And you have to remember that you're gonna get to help the people and not the profits.
Yeah, it takes a very specific and special type of person to endure all the stresses of this industry. And especially for you, like I can tell that you're quite passionate about this. And for anyone out there, since you say we need a lot more people into these types of industries and organizations because there's a lot of people that need help, right? What skills or qualities do you think are essential for a leader in this field?
You have to be really resilient, and you have to be okay with extremely delayed gratification. Like, you won't get results for a long time, and when you speak up against the injustices in the system, there will be entire agencies that come after you and try and say that just demonize you for pointing out things. But I think if you want to get into this field and you want to create a change, you have to have compassion, have empathy, and be okay with the suffering for a long time. Like, be okay not making money, not having friends, not having a social life. That's like ingrained in the company, ingrained in supporting all those kids. And then once your company starts to grow a little more, you get to start. Once you build a solid team, I think that's the key thing, is you gotta have a solid team so you don't feel guilty tapping out. You don't feel like guilty taking a nap or going home for the day. Like you, so when you're starting, I think the foundation is the most important. Like you need to have a good model, you need to have a good system in place, but you also need to have a good support structure for yourself and have a good team of people that you trust that you know aren't going to neglect or abuse or drop the ball. Because in this industry, if you drop the ball, it could be a really bad time. So you could have 23 and a half hours of great people on, great supervision, but a half hour could result in someone getting injured or someone dying. So you really got to make sure that it's really you got a solid group, and I think what's more needed now is just people that are willing to advocate for change, people that are willing to stand up to CAS and the ministry and just tell them that the system's corrupt. Like the system, I know, to be corrupt. It is so frustrating because if you ask any social worker individually, you buy them a drink, you talk to them, they'll say it's corrupt. Like 100% they'll say it's corrupt. But no one's doing anything about it. No one's doing anything at all. It just there is quite literally billions and billions of dollars being funneled into supporting kids, and the kids, they don't even get to get signed up for baseball because they say there's no money for them. The people who own the group homes can charge $60,000 up front to take a kid in. They tell them that they can't get Netflix subscriptions. Like it's crazy. It's an insane system of that honestly needs a lot more people looking into because it is just rampant with like greed and abuse, mismanagement of funds. It is. So I would say, I mean, I'm really not doing a great job at selling this field, but I would say if you join the field, you better be ready to try and change the field because if you want to be part of what it is now, it's a gross place to be part of.
I think there has to be systemic change, definitely, because there is funding I'm hearing, but it's just not being allocated into the correct places. And, there might be some young professionals out there listening to us. And since you're an industry expert, I wanted to ask you just one last question. How can young professionals entering this field ensure that they maintain compassion and empathy in the work that they do?
Being able to separate, like you yourself as a professional going in to treat symptoms, right? So when you see somebody who's acting in a way that society does not like, if they're aggressive, if they're swearing at you, these are all why we are around. You walk in and this kid who bites you, hits you, you have to know that like your job is to correct that. So just like doctors can't get mad because the patient has a clogged artery, we can't get mad because this kid bites you. Like you gotta remember that you're there to help them. You're there to fix that symptom so they don't continue biting people. They don't continue hurting people. They don't continue doing that. And more importantly, like there's a reason why they're acting in the way that they are. So if you get sworn at and yelled at with all racist names or whatever, like you need to understand that that's all. There's all those behaviors that are targeted towards you are the result of abuse or mistreatment and lack of parental guidance to have a correct. Like so, the kid, the person exhibiting the behaviors is not responsible. The behaviors of the person are two separate entities. And remember that if you're going into this field, even in life, you just remember that people are not their behaviors. They are completely separate. Behaviors are situational. They are caused by a mountain of factors outside of our control, and they can be isolated and changed. The person themselves should be appreciated for who they are and who they can become. And if you can keep that separation, every day you go in and really, if you do it well, or you see the change really quickly. Like you do it well, you could walk in day one, kid tries to stab you. Day 5, they might be your best friend. it could be really quick because it's but you just have to be able to keep that. You have to be able to keep that throughout everything. You can't have those moments of frustration where you could exhibit it in a way where now fed into the problem. So you just got to remember that you're the solution. You're there to do it. Doesn't matter what they've done. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It is all treatable, and you're there to treat it. So
Thank you for that, Christian. No, you definitely are so strong to be able to endure all the stresses that this industry entails. And just before I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to share to our audience? We have a huge audience in North America. Perhaps you'd like to share some of the resources. Perhaps there's someone out there who needs help. Anything that you'd like to say before we go?
Yeah. I think if anyone is interested in getting involved in helping, the Indigenous Youth Services has a Facebook page that's pretty active. We're trying to just generate awareness for injustices, mistreatments, and try and improve the quality of services. I'm not really great at sales pitches, but buy my books and stuff. And really, if you want to get involved, you get involved on a ground level. If you get contact the ombudsman in your area, the ministry, and really get some information on what's been happening and what changes they have and how they plan to, the elected officials to ask them how they plan to fix these injustices. Because I think if people were actually aware of these, the house 4 doors down from them might have 12 kids locked in a basement. I think there'd be a lot more protests in the streets, but no one shines the light on it. If we could have a million community members with flashlights, it would be a great time.
Well, thank you so much, Christian, for being here on our podcast. And yes, everyone who's listened today, Christian has a lot of books available on Amazon, I believe. There's Decoding Behavior, Parenting with Purpose, and the Ethical Eagle series. So please check those out. We'll probably link those down below, as well as the links to the resources for the Youth Indigenous Services. Thank you so much, Christian, for being here in this podcast. And thank you so much for the work that you continue to do. I hope, I wish you all the strength to keep going forward and keep helping everyone who needs you. And of course, thank you to everyone who has joined us today on our podcast. This has been your host, Patricia. And remember, for all your professional, business, and technical writing needs, there's only one way to go, and that's with The Right Direction. See you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.